There's a habit happening in offices right now. Nobody talks about it, but it's quietly costing people relationships, trust, and opportunities. It's email. Not email itself, the way we're using it. Once you see this pattern, you won't be able to unsee it. And by the end of this video, you'll have one simple shift you can make starting today. Let me paint a picture. Two people on the same team, sitting a few meters apart. One of them has a quick question. What do? They open their inbox, they type it out, they hit send. The other person is sitting right there. They could have just turned around. Here's another one. Someone needs to raise an issue with a client. Something didn't go to plan, so what do? They write an email. They read it back 3 times, they soften every sentence, then they send it. No phone call, no conversation, just words on a screen sent off into the void, hoping it lands the way they meant it to land. This is happening everywhere. In your office, probably to you this week, maybe even today. Now this isn't really about age, but it is worth naming. If you grew up with a phone in your hand, texting and messaging probably feels more natural than calling. Now that's not a character flaw, it's just what you grew up with. But the workplace still runs on relationships, and relationships are built in real time. So if this is genuinely your default way of communicating, this video matters even more for you. For the last 10 years of my career, I worked as an insurance broker. Before that, I spent 30 odd years inside large life assurance companies, eventually as their head of operations. So I've seen this from both sides of the desk. Now, as a broker, I sat between the life company and the client. And these aren't simple products. They're life policies, pension investments, lump sum investments. The kind of thing you need proper advice on before you buy, and real support when it's time to make a change or put in a claim. So here's what I saw again and again. If a client needed something from the life company, there was no one to call, just email or a call centre number. The agent would take a note for the file, and that was usually the end of it. A call back from the actual person handling the case almost never happened. It got worse when a client had more than one thing going on at once. Say a policy maturing with the proceeds being reinvested in the same time. 2 different departments, sometimes 2 floors apart in the same building, and they still couldn't pick up the phone or walk down the corridor. Everything went through email, every time. So when a client came to me asking why their claim was delayed or why nobody could explain what was happening with their reinvestment, I often couldn't get a straight answer either. Not because I didn't know my job, because the system itself had no conversation built into it anywhere. And here's what that did. It made me, the person trying to help, look ineffective. Not because of anything I'd done, because the organisation behind me had built email and call centres as a wall between the people who needed answers and the people who had them. If a company that size can end up built entirely around email instead of conversation, it's no surprise the rest of us slip into the same habit without even noticing. Now, I want to be clear here. If this is you, I'm not saying you're lazy or bad at your job. Quite the opposite. Email feels safe. There's no awkward pause, no tone to manage, no reaction to read in real time. You write it, you send it, and you move on with your day. And on the surface, that sounds sensible. But here's what actually happens over time. Email strips out everything that makes a conversation work. Tone, timing, the ability to read how someone's reacting and adjust on the spot. That quick question to your colleague a few meters away. It often turns into 3 or 4 emails over 2 hours. like a 90-second conversation would have solved it on the spot. That carefully worded email to your client, it can land in a completely different tone than you intended. No warmth, no context, just words open to interpretation. And here's the part that really matters. The relationship doesn't grow. Because relationships, whether with a colleague or a client, are built in real-time interaction, not in written records. There's something else happening too. The people who can have these conversations in real time, who can walk over, pick up the phone, speak up in a room, get seen differently. They're seen as confident, capable, ready for more responsibility. The people who only operate through writing don't get marked down for it directly. They just don't get the next opportunity, and nobody tells them why. Think of trust like a bank account. Every real conversation is a small deposit. An email exchange on its own barely moves the balance. Over months and years, that difference adds up. It's the difference between being someone people go to and being someone people simply email. So here's the shift you need to make. Stop thinking of email as your first move. Start thinking of it as your last move. Here's the rule. Conversation first, email second, if needed to confirm or document what was discussed. That's it. That's the whole shift. Have the conversation. Pick up the phone. Walk over to the desk. Then if something needs to be on record, send a short follow-up email confirming what was agreed. The relationship gets built in the conversation. The email just becomes the paper trail. Now, to be fair, email isn't the enemy here. Email is useful for confirming details, for documenting agreements, for sending information someone needs to refer back to later, for communicating across time zones when a conversation isn't possible. Used that way, email supports the relationship. The problem isn't email. The problem is using email as your default for everything, including the conversations that actually need a human voice behind them. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Derek, this is nonsense. Email is faster, it doesn't interrupt anyone, it's just easier. And look, I understand why it feels that way. But here's something worth knowing. You're not actually resistant to the idea, you're resistant to the discomfort. Sending an email means you never have to manage someone's reaction. No awkward pause, no tone to read in real time. That's what feels easier, not the outcome, the avoidance. So I'm not going to ask you to believe me. I'm going to ask you to test it just once. So don't say, I'll just email them, it's quicker. Say, let me just walk over and ask. So here's the experiment. Next time you're about to send an email to someone sitting near you, stop, get up, walk over instead. Just once and see what happens. Most of the time, what would have taken 3 emails and 2 hours gets sorted in under a minute. And something else happens too. The relationship gets a little stronger. Small deposits adding up. Now let's talk about clients, because here this matters even more. Most businesses default to email with clients. It's the norm. Everyone does it. Which means if you're the one who picks up the phone, you instantly stand out. An email says, here's some information. A phone call says, I'm thinking about this with you. Now that's a completely different posture. Don't email to say, just emailing you to let you know there's a slight delay. Instead, phone to say, I wanted to call you directly about a delay so I can talk you through it properly. In a world where everyone else sends the same templated message, the person who calls is the one who gets remembered. And remembered is what gets you the next conversation and often the next piece of business. So let's make this practical. Here are a few situations where conversation should come first, with email used only to follow up. Giving feedback to a colleague. Now, don't write a long email explaining what went wrong. Phone or meet and say, "Have you got 2 minutes? I wanted to talk about something with you." Now, disagreeing with the decision. Don't send an email outlining your concerns after the meeting. Instead, raise it in the room or ask for 5 minutes afterwards to talk it through. Declining a request. Don't send a short, blunt email saying no. Instead, make a quick call or have a conversation explaining why, with the option to find another way. Now, in every one of these, the conversation builds something the email never could. Understanding, context, trust. So let's bring this together. You're not being asked to stop using email. Email has its place for confirming details, for documenting agreements, for information someone needs later. What you're being asked to do is stop leading with it. Before you send that next email, ask yourself one question. Could this be a 30-second conversation instead? If the answer is yes, have the conversation first, then email afterwards if you need to. One habit repeated enough times, it changes how people experience working with you internally and externally. Your career and your client relationships shouldn't be built on carefully worded emails sent from a few feet away. They should be built on conversations, real ones, the kind that build trust faster than any email chain ever could. So this week, try it. Just once. Walk over instead of typing. Pick up the phone instead of drafting. And notice what happens. If this was useful, hit the thumbs up and let me know in the comments. What's one conversation you've been avoiding by hiding behind email? And if you want to build the communication skills that move your career forward, that's exactly what I cover inside Ascend. Links are in the description. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more videos like this. Bye for now.